Some people are asking if Donald Trump could be the Antichrist because he created a peace deal with Israel in the Middle East this past week. But listen, guys, that is ridiculous, okay? The Bible says that the Antichrist is going to be a very loud and boastful man. The Bible says the Antichrist is going to be someone who claims great things, that the world will marvel after him and wonder who could make war against him. The Bible says that the Antichrist is going to suffer a head wound and then miraculously survive it, even though it looks fatal. Wait. Welcome to God and His Prophets. My name is Luke Taylor. This podcast is normally a verse-by-verse study through the Bible's major and minor prophets. However, I'm taking a little bit of a break from that this week. I want to talk about some current events that are going on because these, I feel, actually have some real prophetic significance. And so we'll get back into the book of Zechariah next week and get into his second night vision. I'm sorry if you were all geared up and ready to hear about that this time. I just felt like, and I don't do this a lot, but I just felt like just because of what has taken place in our world over the past couple years, and especially everything that's happened the past week or two, it was worth taking the time to look into Scripture and ask the question, does the Bible have anything to say about what's going on? And so thanks for tuning in today, and we'll just kind of get right into it. I want to start by just reading a news story just to kind of contextualize everything. I'm sure you're aware of the current events and have been paying attention, but just in case you need caught up on anything, Donald Trump brokered a peace deal this past week between the Palestinians, the so-called Palestinians, these people who are led by the terrorist group Hamas. The Palestinians, in case you don't know, Hamas is kind of like you might think of it as a political party. We kind of think of them as a group of terrorists, but Hamas is kind of like a political party over there in the Palestinian area. And the Palestinians vote Hamas in as their leadership to guide and dictate what that strip of land over there in the Gaza Strip, what it's going to do. And so, of course, as you know, they attacked Israel mercilessly in a very cruel way, slaughtering over 1,000 Israelis on October 7th of 2023. I remember we took a week to talk about that, I think, on the podcast back when that happened a couple years ago. And so since then, Israel has been trying to get their hostages back, who were the survivors who were taken in that attack, and basically wiping out all the structures and just about everything in that Gaza Strip ever since, just leaving it rubble because they never want what happened on October 7th to ever happen ever again. And so everyone's been talking about how now there's been this peace deal reached and kind of looking at it from a political perspective. I want to analyze it more prophetically today. And so here's a headline. I think this is from Time Magazine. The headline said, Trump and world leaders sign enduring peace pact aimed at ending Gaza war. U.S. President Donald Trump, alongside leaders from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, signed the Trump Declaration for Enduring Peace and Prosperity in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt on Monday. Together, we will implement this agreement in a manner that ensures peace, security, stability, and opportunity for all peoples of the region, including both Palestinians and Israelis. Now, I want to highlight two words that we just read, peace and security, okay? This is what the agreement says. This is a quote from the agreement itself. Together, we will implement this agreement in a manner that ensures peace, security, stability, and opportunity for all peoples of the region, including both Palestinians and Israelis. World leaders were also present at the peace summit, many offering praise to President Trump for his contribution to the ceasefire deal. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said, President Trump, this is your achievement. I thank you for your tireless efforts to deliver this moment. French President Emmanuel Macron, he's called it a historic day for Israelis and Palestinians. He said, let us prepare for what comes next together with humility. Monday evening's symbolic signature ceremony marks a concrete start to the beginning of what promises to be a lasting peace, leaders hope, and the release of all remaining living Israeli hostages and nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees shows significant progress towards that goal. So That is, and the hostages, I'm pretty sure all the hostages have been released since this article came out. And so everyone who was taken in Israel 2 years ago, if they were still alive, they're back home with their families at this point. Some of the hostages did not survive the last couple of years. They'd been executed or had been set free previously. And so let's talk about this prophetically, okay? Was the stuff that happened this past week, was it spoken of in Bible prophecy? No. Okay, the stuff that happened, specifically the things that happened this week, are not specifically stated that they were going to take place in Bible prophecy. However, what I would say is I saw a couple things that are coming in prophecy that may have been set up by the events of this week. So if you've been listening to me for a while, you know I am not one of these rapture fever guys. I don't go around claiming the rapture is going to happen, in the next 6 months. I've said lots of times on this podcast, plan like it's going to be 100 years from now, but be ready for it to happen today. Okay? You got to be ready to go anytime. Even if the rapture doesn't happen, you could get hit by a car. So you got to be ready to go to heaven at any time. You want to be busy working for the Lord at all time, accomplishing as much as you can for him and his kingdom in however much time that you have here on this earth. But you also plan like he's not coming back for 100 years. We don't just stop doing stuff because we think the rapture is close. Like, we got to stay busy, occupy till he comes, as Jesus said. So we got to actually stay after it and we want to accomplish, we want to do as much as we can with the time that we have here. Okay, so don't ever want to just rest on your laurels and just kind of like, okay, I'll sit back in my rocking chair and sit on the back porch and wait for Jesus to show up on the eastern horizon. Okay, no, that's not what we are to do. We are to be working hard and just ready for Jesus to come back. Even if it's not going to be for 100 years, we want to build as much as we can in that time. So, you know me, if you know me, I'm not someone who goes around like a couple years ago in 2023 when this October 7th attack happened. There was a lot of rapture fever at that time. A lot of people going around claiming that they believe the rapture is going to happen by the end of the year. There is a lot of prophecy people out there saying that. I put up an episode that fall explaining why I did not think the rapture was going to happen in 2023 or probably not in 2024. That was by far the most viewed episode that I had done that whole year, was my episode about why I didn't think the rapture was going to happen anytime soon necessarily. And it upset a lot of people, quite frankly. But here we are, guys. It's been 2 years. The rapture still hasn't happened. I don't think it's going to happen this year. Like I said, be ready. But we just don't know. And I don't think we should put all of our eggs in the basket of just expecting that it's going to happen in the next 6 months or so. I still believe, and I went into all this in that episode 2 years ago, I still believe there's quite a few things that have to happen or probably will happen before the 7-year tribulation kicks off. So I believe in, what's called the premillennial and dispensationalist viewpoints of how Scripture is going to play out for the future. After studying the Bible, that is the approach I take to the Scriptures. But I do believe all those things are going to happen. I believe there will be a literal Antichrist and all that stuff. But I think there's actually going to be some more hard times ahead. I might speak about this more later. We who believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, we're often slandered at times that we are, some scholars and pastors and Christians will say, oh, you just can't handle suffering. You just don't want to suffer for Jesus. So that's why you believe that he would come back before the tribulation. It's because we're afraid of suffering. Well, I don't know anyone, Christian or not, who looks forward to suffering, okay? But I actually believe that before Jesus comes back, I think we probably will go through some suffering. I think when he raptures us, it's escaping the wrath of God in the tribulation, but I think he's going to pull us out of a really bad situation, one that might even look kind of hopeless, and that he's going to pull us out of that and rescue us Christians that we might come under heavy persecution before he returns. That is kind of the way that I expect it. So I'm not afraid of, I don't want to suffer, but I don't believe in a pre-tribulation rapture as an escape from suffering. I actually expect that we may go through it before he returns. That's one of the things I would actually expect to see before the tribulation kicks off. And again, I kind of have it easy here in America. There are places in the world who do go through intense suffering, So, if he showed up today, he would already be rescuing a lot of people from suffering. So I don't discount that at all. There's a lot of people. I just saw an article, or maybe just a social media post today, about a poor woman in Nigeria whose children were killed in front of her, a Christian family. I think her husband may have been killed, and they cut off her hand. And so there are people who go through horrible, horrific things. This happened in Nigeria. So yes, suffering takes place already in the world. But I honestly think it might come to more of the world before Jesus comes back. Sorry, if you wanted a happy, feel-good message here on a Sunday afternoon as I'm recording this. And if you're listening, I will say I try to do these actually as Facebook Live events on Sunday afternoons or evenings. And then I post them on my podcast feed on Monday morning, audio only on Monday morning. But you can get the podcast wherever you prefer as far as that goes. So, all that to say, I'm not sitting here today to claim that the rapture is going to happen by the end of 2025. I don't actually expect it to. I think we need to just keep at it and keep building things. When I say for this world, keep building things for God's kingdom here in this world is really what I mean. Keep after all that. And now, what happened this past week, though, that could indicate to us that the rapture or the end times events, that they might have really taken a big step closer to those things because of the events with Donald Trump and all that. At the present moment, right now, we have peace in Israel. We could not have said that for the past few years. Even for the few years before that, there was all this tension all the time. It was not a peaceful state of existence over there in the land of Israel. And even now, even today, you're a little cautious. You're like, I hope this peace deal works. I hope the Gazans or the Palestinians or Hamas, I hope they leave Israel alone now and look like they're disarming and not going to try to repeat a terrorist attack again in the near future. We hope to see all those things. We're just kind of holding our breath right now to see if it all plays out. But it looks like Donald Trump has introduced this agreement and helped facilitate this ceasefire. We saw the Israeli hostages get to go home. And hopefully now we see some real changes in the leadership in this area that's often known as Palestine. I don't like to call it that, but that you know what I mean when I say Palestine. So right now, Israel looks like it's kind of at peace. They don't have a conflict with Iran. Some people look at that and they say, well, what about wars and rumors of wars? I thought Jesus said, in fact, I'll pull up the verse. Lots of Bible teachers will tell you that one of the signs of the end times is wars and rumors of wars. Matthew 24:6. Jesus said, and you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. So some people say, well, right there, Matthew 24, it's the Olivet Discourse. It's Jesus' great teaching on the end times. Didn't he say right there, one of the signs of the end is wars and rumors of wars? Actually, he said the opposite, okay? He was saying, if you look at all those verses, earthquakes, famines, wars and rumors of wars, false Christs. He says all these are not signs of the end. All right? Look that he said there. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. When there's a big earthquake, everyone's like, oh no, it's one of the signs of the end times. That is not what he said. He said this is just business as usual. Earthquakes are just business as usual in the world. Every few years, there's going to be a huge earthquake. All right? There's constantly smaller earthquakes just about every day somewhere. Earthquakes are kind of a normal thing. They can be very disruptive and scary, but they are not a sign that Jesus is about to come back, okay? He said, another version says, these things must happen, but the end is still to come. So these things are not signs of the end. These are non-signs, all right? There will always be wars and rumors of wars. It's been that way ever since Jesus left this earth. It was like that before Jesus left this earth, all right? There are always going to be doomsday preppers going around telling you that World War III is just on the horizon, all right? There's always going to be people telling you it's just around the corner. Oh no, if Putin attacks Russia, sorry, I said that wrong. If Russia attacks Ukraine, it's going to be World War III. If Iran attacks Israel, it's going to be World War III. You've been hearing those things the past few years. You will always hear people trying to stir up, they want to get clicks and they want to get excitement. There's always going to be people telling you World War III is going to happen next month. And if World War III ever actually does happen and all those people say, see, told you so, okay? Then after that's over, they're just going to be telling you, look, World War IV, it's just around the corner. World War IV is about to break out. There will always be wars and rumors of wars. That is not a sign that Jesus is about to come back. 1 Thessalonians 5:3, it actually will tell you what is the sign that Jesus and that the end times are about to kick off. All right? 1 Thessalonians 5:3. This is, if you read this in context, it is talking about the end times. It says this: while people are saying there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. All right? When people are saying peace and security, it is not wars and rumors of wars that are a sign that the end is about to break out. That's always happened. It's always going to happen. It's when people are saying there is peace and security. Okay? I want to go back to something I read earlier. I'll leave this verse up here on the screen. What did the agreement say? This agreement that is called the Trump Declaration for Enduring Peace and Prosperity. What did it say right there? Together we will implement this agreement in a manner that ensures peace, security, stability, and opportunity for all peoples of the region. All right? There you go. Peace, security. That is just what the scripture says. Watch for when people are saying peace and security. All right? That is a sign that the end is going to come. Now, I also love this quote from the United Nations president. This was earlier this year, all right, talking about this conflict that we just saw come to hopefully a resolution this past week. Here's what the UN president said on July 28th of this year. Peace and stability will only be achieved when Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in their own sovereign independent states in peace, security, and dignity. All right? That was the president of the United Nations General Assembly. He made those remarks at the International Conference for Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine. Now, when we look at this verse right here in 1 Thessalonians 5:3, when people are saying peace and security, it's not necessarily, I would say, as I read it, I don't think it's talking specifically about Israel when it says that. I think it's more talking about the worldwide situation, okay? Worldwide, people are saying, finally, we have peace and security throughout the world. And we don't have that right now. So I'm not saying that 1 Thessalonians 5:3, that it was fulfilled this week. I mean, hey, the rapture, maybe it was. Maybe the rapture happens in the next 5 minutes. You know, it all kicks off from the events of this week. But I think it's not just about Israel right there. I think it's talking about the worldwide situation, that the people are going to look around and they're saying, hey, like everyone's finally getting along. We finally got, the bad guys have been taken care of. They're dead or they're controlled. And we're not having this constant like fear of wars and rumors of wars all the time. Right now we have peace and security. I think that's more of what 1 Thessalonians 5:3 is getting at. Right now, we would not say on a worldwide basis that there is peace and security because we have this really well-known conflict right now going on between Russia and Ukraine. I think that might be drawing to a close too. In fact, Trump might be a real catalyst to bringing a resolution to that conflict because Trump has great qualities about himself and he has some major flaws. And one area where he really shines, and you could say it's him or you could say it's Marco Rubio or Mike Pompeo, who he had before, he really shines at his foreign relations. Getting countries to work with the United States for better deals and getting countries to work with each other better. He is really good at fostering those kinds of relationships. And so I would not be surprised if he also brings a resolution to the Russia and Ukraine conflict, and probably in pretty short order. Now he's got the Israel thing off his plate. Now he might focus on what's going on with Ukraine. So we are on our way, it looks like to me. We are getting closer to a kind of a worldwide peace. It'll be a temporary peace, and some might say it'll be a false peace, because when the Antichrist does take control and starts ruling the world, they're very quickly in the tribulation period, war breaks out across the world. In fact, let's just look at that for a minute. Let's talk about when the Antichrist shows up in the book of Revelation, starting at Revelation 6, verse 1. And this deals with what's called the first horseman of the apocalypse, you might say, or of Revelation. There's the four horsemen who come out. So Revelation 6:1, John writes, "Now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the seven seals, And I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, 'Come.' And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer." Longtime listeners of this podcast, you might remember it's been like 3 years at least now, maybe 4. Maybe 4. Have I been doing this podcast for that long? About 3 or 4 years ago, I remember it was summertime, and I did a series on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And so I've talked about these things before, but we'll go into it right here on the first horse here, where it says, John saw a rider coming out on a white horse, and it said he had a bow, okay? Now, some people make a big deal of the fact that there's no arrows mentioned, it's just a bow. I'm not really getting into that today, but what is the prophetic significance or the symbolic significance that this rider, the Antichrist, that he has a bow, okay? Because that's the word it gives us. He has a bow. I'm going to take a drink real quick. The symbolic significance of a bow, to figure that out, we go to the first place that a bow is mentioned in the Bible. And this is a interpretive tool that is often called the law of first mention. I don't know if it's always right, but I've never really seen it not be defendable before. But the law of first mention, it's the idea that if you want to know what something means in the Bible or how to define it best, go to the first place that subject matter is introduced in the scripture and look at how it appears there. And that's what you can use as kind of a guide of how you should understand this thing throughout the rest of the Bible. And so what we can do is if we go to the first place that a bow is mentioned, maybe it'll help us understand the significance that the Antichrist comes out carrying a bow. The first bow in the Bible is the rainbow, okay? But interestingly, the Bible doesn't call it a rainbow. Maybe some translations do. But what the Hebrew actually says is the bow. Like it just calls it a bow in the sky, okay? So Genesis 9, Noah and his family are getting off of the ark, all right? A lot of you probably already know that context, but here's what God says here when they see the rainbow. Genesis 9, 12, and 13. And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations." Verse 13. "I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth." So God set up a rainbow in the sky, but the scripture, again, it called it a bow because of the shape of it, okay? It's like a bow. And he sets that up in the sky to say, I'm never again going to flood the earth and kill all the people and animals. This was a one-time thing. And as a sign of that promise, okay, a covenant is what it called it. As a sign, he put his bow in the sky. So from that, we can take this understanding that a bow symbolizes a covenant, all right? A bow symbolizes a covenant. So the Antichrist comes out with a bow. What does that mean? The Antichrist is going to, something significant about when he appears on the scene, he is going to create some kind of covenant. Now, this matches up perfectly with what we read about the Antichrist in Daniel 9, verse 27. All right, let's go through this one for a minute. Daniel 9:27, "And he," which is the Antichrist, "he shall make a strong covenant with many for 1 week." All right, now, when it says a strong covenant with many for a week, if you read this in context, and I did this on episode, I want to say 50, somewhere around there, I actually broke this down. When it says that he makes a covenant for 1 week, in context, that's talking about a week of years. This was a Hebrew concept for a period of 7 years, okay? So he's making a 7-year covenant. That's what it's talking about right here. And it says he'll make a covenant with many for 1 week, and for half of the week, so after 3.5 of the years, he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall come one who makes desolate until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. So at the halfway point of this 7-year period, which is what we commonly call the 7-year tribulation, the 7 years of the end of the world, at the halfway point of that, the Antichrist's mask is going to come off and people are going to realize, or the Jewish people at least, this is actually a really bad dude, which means at first they must have thought he was a pretty good dude. But after 3.5 years, then it says he is going to commit an act called the abomination of desolation. And from that point on, he's actually a great enemy to the Jewish people and is trying to wipe them out. So we are going to go into all of that today. And we will probably be getting into it later on in the book of Zechariah. We might even get into I'm seeing when my phone buzzed. Oh, my newsletter just came out. It comes out at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoons. So if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, you can go to weirdstuffinthebible.com and sign yourself up. It's more of a newsletter for my other podcast, Weird Stuff in the Bible. But the newsletter just came out. I was like, why is my phone going off? Like I had these alerts start popping up on my screen. Okay, anyway, where was I? So the abomination of desolation and the Antichrist, what his 7-year rule is going to look like, that is going to, we're going to probably be talking about that quite a bit as we go through the book of Zechariah, okay? But especially in chapters like 9, 10, 11, 12, especially in there, a lot of stuff about the Antichrist. But what I want to focus on right here is that it said he is going to make a strong covenant with many for 1 week, okay? I want to break down that a little bit in the Hebrew because here's what actually a lot of people miss about this covenant of the Antichrist, this 7-year covenant. And I don't know if this means when he makes it, he's going to tell people, hey, this is a 7-year agreement. I don't know if it means it's going to be only for 7 years. Or perhaps once he makes it, there's really only 7 years left until Jesus comes back. So at that point... the covenant doesn't mean anything anyway. So I don't know. He might say it's a permanent covenant, but it's only going to last 7 years because that's all that the Antichrist is going to get is 1 week of years. That's all the devil gets to try to make his last stand. And then Jesus returns and drop kicks the Antichrist and false prophet into the lake of fire for all eternity and locks the devil up. So that's what happens at the end of the week. But at the beginning, he shows up with this covenant and it says he will make a strong covenant with many, okay? To make a strong covenant. The word strong right there, it actually means to strengthen something that already exists, okay? So it doesn't mean that he's creating a new covenant. He is actually taking a covenant that was already made, and now he is going to enforce it. So there is some kind of treaty or covenant between nations, some kind of treaty that was already on the table, already supposed to have been followed, and it hasn't been followed. And so when he shows up, he's not creating a new covenant or treaty or whatever it is. He is going to enforce one that's already on the books. But I guess it hasn't been being enforced. One side at least hasn't been following their end of the deal. So when the Antichrist shows up, he's going to come along and he's going to enforce this thing. Here's another translation of Daniel 9:27. This is the New King James Version, okay, where ESV said he'll create a strong covenant. Here's what 9:27 says in the New King James. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, okay? That's really the idea here. He's not creating a new covenant. He is confirming one that's already been made. And that is what the Antichrist is going to do whenever he shows up. So there has to be some kind of deal that's already on the table, but for some reason, it's not being followed. So, is Donald Trump the Antichrist? No. All right, I don't think Donald Trump is the Antichrist. If you thought that that's what I was thinking or building up to, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to mislead you. But if you notice from the title of my episode today, I called it, Did Donald Trump Create the Antichrist's Covenant? Okay? I don't think Trump is the Antichrist. He does have some areas where he kind of spookily, his life lines up with the Antichrist, and that is very interesting. But Daniel 9 shows us, if you read, I think the verses right before 9:27, it'll actually tell us the Antichrist is either going to come out of Rome or that he's going to come out of the Middle East. It has to be one of those two places. When the real Antichrist comes along, what could happen is that this peace treaty here that Donald Trump has come up with, he's going to look at this, he's going to say, well, it has not been being followed. Maybe one side's broken their end of the agreement or something like that. So when he comes in, he is going to enforce that covenant, enforce that peace that had not been enforced up to that point. That is a way that I could actually see this playing out, that the Antichrist takes this Trump deal and actually starts enforcing it. So I don't think Donald Trump is the Antichrist. All right. You don't have to feel bad if you voted for him. That's not what I was going to say. Okay. But I think what he created this week, it very well could be something that the Antichrist uses someday, that he's going to come along and look like a great friend to Israel and start enforcing this deal. Now, I don't even want to get too narrow-minded about that. All right. In Daniel 9:27, it said he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. We don't necessarily know if it has anything to do with Israel. Probably it does, but we can't prove that. It could have something to do with a totally different part of the world. It might be a peace treaty. It might be some other kind of treaty, a trade agreement. We just don't know. We shouldn't get narrow-minded about these things. But I'm looking here like I could see this being a real possibility, that the stuff that happened this past week, that 5 or 10 years from now, the real Antichrist comes along and actually starts enforcing this. And this could be the bow that he's carrying in Revelation 6 whenever he appears on the scene. This could be the agreement that initiates the 7-year tribulation. Okay? I believe that whatever it is, when the Antichrist takes power, it is not going to be something that happens in some backroom deal in the United Nations that we don't even know about. Because then what would be the point of telling us about it in prophecy? If it was going to be something that just happened behind the scenes that we don't even know about, that we don't even bear witness to at all, then why would God have given us those signs to be watching for? So whatever it is, okay, it's not going to be something that happens out of sight. Like when prophecy is fulfilled on this point, it's going to be something that happens out in the open, and we're all going to see it, like the peace deal that Israel had this week. It's going to be something that we all witness, that we all see, and so that we know when it happens, we know that it's really happening. All right, so I'm going to wind down here pretty soon. What else could be on the horizon? Just something else kind of I was thinking about, and we'll be talking about this very soon in Zechariah chapter 2. I should probably save some of these thoughts for Zechariah 2 because we'll be talking about it, but the Gog and Magog conflict. Okay, let me see how long I've been going so far today. Oh, I've been going for 32 minutes. Yeah, it's time to wind this down, okay? But let's keep our eyes on what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. We'll be getting into this more in Zechariah 2 because I actually have a theory that this Zechariah 2's night vision is connecting with Gog and Magog. What I think we're seeing right now is Putin has not been getting what he wanted out of the Ukraine war. And so this could be also a catalyst, especially if peace is brought to that conflict, that could drive Putin to decide, well, I'm going to attack Israel instead and get a coalition of nations to do that. So we'll see if that's what happens. Because, and I want to just bring this up real quick, Ezekiel 38:8, when it talks about these nations that are going to come against Israel. And I've discussed this in great detail. I did about 6 episodes about a year ago at this time, because it was like last November. I did a series of 6 episodes about the Gog and Magog conflict in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And anyway, I've gone into this in great detail, but here's what it says in Ezekiel 38:8. After many days you will be mustered, talking about the leader of this coalition of nations to attack Israel. It says, in the latter years, you will go against the land that is restored from war. So that is one of the prerequisites to the Gog and Magog conflict, is that Israel has to be a land restored from war. Well, the past couple years, it couldn't have been a land restored from war because they were in war. They were at war with the terrorists over there in the Palestinian area. But now they are going to start restoring themselves from that conflict. And that opens the door that now we might be looking at the land that is restored from war. And then if we go to Ezekiel 38:11, verse 11 is what I mean. Gog is going to say, I will go up against the land of unwalled villages. Okay? What he's saying right there is this is a land that is at peace. All right? This is a land at peace. It's unprotected. They're not expecting an attack. And so this is the time where they are going to strike at Israel. Well, guess what, guys? Things could be very well set up for that possibility in the near future too. So the stage is being set for Gog, Magog, the Antichrist, the end of the world. Like, these things are actually, they do, eerily enough, they look like they could be getting close. Again, am I saying the rapture is about to happen this year? I'm sorry, I still don't think the rapture is going to be this year, all right? I still don't think it'll be next year. I do think things will probably get worse in the world, especially for us Christians, before Jesus comes and pulls us out of it. But when I look at what's happened in the past week or two, I do feel like we took a big step in the direction of the end. I could see things right here, as I've laid out. I could see them being set up for the end of the world to really be 5 or 10 years from now. I could definitely see things playing out that way. So, again, always be ready. Plan like it's going to be 100 years, but always be ready to go anytime. Next week, guys, we're going to finish up Zechariah chapter 1. We're going to be looking at God's sovereignty in everything that happens in regard to his land and his people. And so that's what's coming up real soon. This is just the beginning. There is so much more to explore in God and his prophets.